Hello everyone, this is Lexicon Architect, and for today's commander, we're going to be looking at Treebeard, Gracious Host, a 4-mana Celestia creature, tree folk that has Trample and Ward 2, and when it ETBs, is going to create 2 food tokens, and whenever you gain life, you put that many 1/1 counters on target Halfling or Tree Folk. So the basic general strategy of this deck is to generate a bunch of food tokens, gain some life, and buff of our creatures. So let's look at mana value 1. We're going to be talking about 3 cards, Essence Warden, Soul Warden, and Soul's Attendant. Basically, they all have the same ability where whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. So this is going to allow us to stay in the game longer, as we're going to continuously gain life whenever a creature ETBs. Mana value 2, we're going to look at Banquet Guest. It has affinity for food, so it's going to reduce its X cost. It has trample, and it's going to enter in with twice that many 1/1 counters on it. So if we have 4 food and we pay 2 mana, it's going to come in as an 8/8. And then for 2 mana, we can sacrifice a food to give it indestructible. We have Dawn of the New Age just to give us card draw. And once its whole counters are gone, we're going to gain 4 life. And if we do control our commander, we can put 4 counters on target Halfling or target Tree Folk. Then we have Farmer Ken, a 2 mana X spell that when it ETBs, you create that many 1/1 white Halfling creature tokens and X food tokens. Then I want to talk about Feed the Clan. So for 2 mana, we can gain 5 life. But if we do control a creature with power 4 or greater, we gain 10 life. So let's think about this. Let's say we have our commander on board, we gain 10 life. We can put 10 counters on target Halfling or target Tree Folk. Then we have Heroic Intervention to protect ourselves from board wipes. We have Prosperous Innkeeper. When it ETBs, it's going to make us a treasure. And then whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we get to gain 1 life. Then we have Samwise Gamgee, 2 mana spell that says whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can create a food token. And then you can sacrifice 3 foods, and you can return target historic card from your graveyard to your hand. Then we have Trilacera Moondancer, 2 mana spell that says whenever you gain life, you put a 1/1 counter on her, and then you get to scry 1. And lastly, we're going to talk about Suture Priest. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. And then whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. At mana value 3, we're going to talk about Academy Manufactor. It just gives us crazy value because as we're generating foods, we're also going to be generating clue and treasure tokens as well. Then we're going to talk about Heliod's Sun Crown, an indestructible god, where if your devotion to white is less than 5, Heliod's not a creature. But whenever you gain life, you can put a 1/1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control, and then you can tap 2 to give another creature you control lifelink. So let's say we attack with our commander. Let's say it has 5 power, um, and we do connect or deal damage to a creature. We're going to gain that much life, and we're going to put that many counters on our attacking creature that has lifelink. We have Flawless Maneuver here, because if we don't control our commander, it will cost 3. But if we do control our commander, we can cast it for free, and creatures we control will gain indestructible. Next, let's talk about Of Herbs and Stewed Rabbit, a 3 mana saga that on this first chapter, you can put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature, create a food. Chapter 2, draw a card, create a food. And then Chapter 3, you create a 1/1 white halfling creature token for each food you control. So if we have 6 foods, we're going to make 6 tokens. Next, one of the most important cards in the deck, Sam Loyal Attendant. Basically, at the beginning of your combat, on your turn, you create a food token, and activate ability of foods you control costs 1 less to activate. So now, instead of paying 2 mana to sacrifice one of our foods, we're only paying 1. So this is going to allow us to have extra mana to do extra things, since we're not dumping that extra 1 mana to sacrifice the food. Then we have the Gaffer. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, you draw a card. So we can hold back our food tokens on our opponent's turn, and then we can sack them to gain 3 life, and then at the end step we will draw a card. So this will keep our hand loaded, so we always have something in our hand. Then let's talk about Tireless Provisioner. It has landfall, so whenever our land ETBs, we can either make a food or a treasure, depending on what we really want. If we do need the treasure to ramp into other spells, we'll make the treasure. If not, we'll make the food. Then we have Unbreakable Formation. Um, for 3 mana at instant speed, our creatures will gain Indestructible. And if we cast a spell during our main phase, you put a 1/1 counter on each of those creatures and they gain Vigilance. And lastly, Union of the Third Path, because it works very well with our commander. So we draw a card and then you gain life equal to a number of cards in hand. So let's say we have 6 cards in hand, we'll gain 6 life. And if we control our commander, we can distribute those 6 counters on up to 1 target halfling or 1 target tree folk. The main value 4, we have Cosmos Elixir. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life. Otherwise, you gain 2 life. So this is going to give us an extra 2 counters on a creature or draw us a card. Then we have Eleanor Gardner. When it ETBs, you create a food. And at the beginning of your end step, if you sacrifice the food this turn, you may search your library for a basic land card and put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So this is going to allow us to thin our deck, get our lands out, so we're not continuously drawing lands every single turn. Then we play Lathiel, the Bounteous Dawn. It's a 2/2 with lifelink. It says at the beginning of each end step, if you gain life this turn, distribute up to that many 1/1 counters among any number of other target creatures. At mana value 5, we have Fumigate, and this is our only board wipe, but it will destroy all creatures, and we will gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. Then we have Timber Protector. Other tree folks get +1/+1, and other tree folk and forest you control have Indestructible. Then at mana value 6, we have Ezreroot Channeler. It's a 6 mana spell with reach, but it's going to reduce the cost of our creature spells based on the amount of life that you gain this turn, and we can tap it to gain 2 life. And then finally, at mana value 7, we have Fangorn Tree Shepherd. Tree folk we control have Vigilance, and then whenever one or more tree folk you control attack, add twice that much green mana, and you don't lose unspent green mana as steps and phases end. So we can float mana at our end step and then have that mana to be used on our next turn. As far as lands go, let's see if we have any utility lands here. No, we do not. So that's the deck in a nutshell. It's going to cost you around $255. If you like this deck tech, please subscribe to my channel and have a good night.